Today we're at the new Coracle shed and I'm delighted to talk to my friend Wayne Owen, who is that rare thing, which is a member of the family connected with the Rogers family Coracle makers. Well, thanks very much, Wayne, for coming in to talk to us.
You're very welcome.
You're a very rare thing, which is a member of the family connected to the Rogers family.
Yes, connected to the family.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, when you were born, and how you're related to the family?
I was born in 1954.
Yeah.
At the Hilltop. My mother's mother, is a sister to Eustace's mother.
Right.
So Eustace's mother is my great aunt Chrissy, or Christiana. She was christened.
Right.
So that's my connection with them.
Yeah.
Although we think there might be a connection back a bit, but we're not quite sure.
Because the Owen family were also involved in they owned a cottage next door to the Rogerses and were involved.
No, the Owen family were bargees. They were barge owners. I think it was started by John Owen. He was born in about 1778 or something like that. John Owen owned the Cooper's Arms. I think Cooper's Arms is on the postcard there.
This photo here, yeah.
On this photograph. The Cooper's Arms stood at the front of Eustace's, what is Eustace's house now. And there was a set of cottages behind it, and it was called Gary's or Geary Square at the back. And John Owen owned the Cooper's Arms, and he owned the cottages behind. And I believe he owned quite a few properties. He either owned the row of cottages next to it, going down, but he certainly owned some of the houses at the bottom.
Right.
And I believe one of those was a pub as well.
Right.
And John Owen died there.
Yeah.
Then it was let, and it was let to the Hills, which was Tommy Rogers's wife's uncle and grandfather.
Gosh.
And when Tommy married,
Yeah.
they lived with the uncle and the grandfather in those properties.
As people did.
Yes.
People did, yeah.
And so I believe that's where Harry was born.
Right, that's interesting.
So that's the connection between the Owens and the Rogerses.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, I mean, when Auntie Chrissy married Harry, she lived there until they went to Wrexham.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
Because they caught him in, they rounded up the draft dodgers.
Yeah.
And they rounded him up in the square in Iron Bridge into the market hall.
Oh, right.
And they're all rounded up, and they were given the choice of either they went to war or they went to the mines.
Right.
And so it could be about 1914, 50.
So these are your family members in this photo?
Yes, this is Granny Owen. This is great. This is Eustace's granny and my great granny.
Yeah.
This is Mary. She was Mary Ann, and she was. We think she was born out of wedlock, but it was quite usual for people to be the first child to be born out of wedlock because they waited until Christmas to get married, because it was free to get married at Christmas.
Yeah.
So, but she was Mary Hodgkins stroke Anderson. This is Lizzie, the eldest, then Becky, then Alice, then Chrissy, which is Eustace's mother, and then that is Uncle Will, although he looks like a she, but it's a boy, and it was taken about 1890. And that's when they lived at Madeley Wood.
Right.
Because that's where most of the family came from, was Madeley Wood. So yes, that's
Were they I mean, there was the Madeley Wood Company. Were they involved in the Madeley Wood Company? Did they work for the Madeley Wood Company?
No. Grandad Owen was a stonemason stroke builder. His father.
And this is him in this photo.
This one's Grandad Owen.
Yeah.
And I think this is after they'd finished building somewhere, and it might be the red brick house on Chapel Row. It might even have been the drill hall.
Oh, right, yes.
Because he was involved in building the drill hall. But they came from Madeley Wood.
Yeah.
His father, George Owen, came from Madeley Wood. George Owen, his father was a shoemaker. Shoemaker, and he also ran a pub. They all seem to run public houses.
So
that one is Uncle Will, which is the child
in the photo.
In the photograph, that's Uncle Will. Uncle Will married, and he went to live at Port Talbot.
Oh, right.
And he worked on the railway all his life.
Right.
So he's the fifth one down.
Right. And is this him as?
No, that is Tommy. So.
Right.
If we have a look at the two girls at the top.
Yes. Oh, yes. These two.
These two girls.
Beautiful.
That's Auntie Lizzie and Auntie Becky.
Which one's Lizzie? Which one's Becky?
This one's Lizzie.
Yeah.
And this one's Becky. And strangely enough, all their lives they had the same hairstyle.
Gosh.
Auntie Lizzie, she lived until she was 86.
Gosh.
And she lived at Belmont Road.
Oh, right.
In the little row cottages at Belmont Road. And then she moved into what was the old workhouse on the top of Belmont.
Oh, the top, yeah.
At the top.
The beaches.
But yeah, I always remember as a kid, and this little old lady with a stick and this white hair.
Gosh.
Piled up in a little tiny bun, and
Did
she was
she
quite a tartar. Yes, she married.
She
married Ben Fletcher.
Oh, right.
And she was married at 18, which was very unusual. But I think it's because his grandparent, it was Granny, had the Birding End pub.
Did they?
So he was quite respectable.
Oh, gosh.
Auntie Becky never married.
Yeah.
Auntie Becky always suffered from the vapours. Well, Granny Owen used to say, "Oh, of course it's too tight." This one is Auntie Chrissy.
Oh, look at that! It's lovely.
This is Auntie Chrissy on her wedding day,
and
she married Uncle Harry. I think about 1911, 1912, something like that.
How lovely.
And I think it wasn't an approved marriage, so to speak. I don't think they were very happy with her marrying him, because he would be considered the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
And of course, his father being a poacher. But then she married him, and they were very, very happy.
Well, and the lovely thing, talking about keeping the same hairstyle, she's got those lovely earphones.
Earphones. I always remember Auntie Chrissy, because she had those earphones. She had long grey hair, and then of course she'd plait, and then the earphones would go on. But she had them all her life. Again, she never changed her hairstyle. But yeah, that's them in later life.
And that's down at the house.
The late 50s, maybe early 60s, because Uncle Harry died in 1964, and Auntie Chrissy died. No, sorry, Uncle Harry died in 1966, and Auntie Chrissy died in 1968. She in fact died on my birthday in 1968.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
In later years. This one is Gran.
Yeah.
This is my Gran, and this is Emmy. She's Chrissy's youngest sister. And she lived all her life she lived until 1938 at Churchill, when the houses were all condemned and they had to move. They were considered slum clearance.
There was a lot of clearance around that time, and that's where the
But they didn't demolish the house until late 40s.
Right.
because they had to use, because war intervened,
Of course.
and they had to use the house during the war for other families, because there was nowhere to live.
So
All these evacuees coming in, and so a family did actually live there after they left.
God.
That one is Alice. This is Auntie Alice.
Yeah.
And Auntie Alice, all her life, had that hairstyle. Even as a little old lady, she still had the hairstyle.
And what's her relationship to Harry and Eustace?
So Alice is Chris's sister.
Right.
So she is on the big photograph.
Right. Yes.
So Alice is the third one down.
Oh, right.
Alice was a bit of a tartar. She worked at the Golden Ball.
Did she?
She was about, I suppose, 18 as a nurse. I don't know whether she was a nurse for an old person or a nurse for a child. And one of her jobs was to sweep down the stairs. And so, as they did in Victorian times, they used to leave money on the stairs to see whether she would take it.
Oh, gosh.
Famously, they would leave it on mantelpieces and all sorts of places.
Yes.
And Alice got very, very fed up of it.
Yeah.
And so one day she decided she'd teach them a lesson, so she nailed the coins to the stairs. But that was just Alice. Famously, she used to bunk off school in the afternoons to help down the brickworks for an halfpenny.
Did
She
she?
was getting an halfpenny in the afternoon,
Gosh,
and she'd be humping bricks and
that's
tiles.
hard
and
work.
things. Yeah. But she was one of those women. They were all very, very strong women.
Do you know what? I did some work, sorry, by the by, I did some work in Dudley on the brickworks there, and there were some really tough women down there who were making the handmade bricks.
Oh yeah.
And it was, the tough women did work
Yeah,
in
I mean,
brickworks.
she was a schoolgirl. She'd be
Yeah.
perhaps 10 or 11, something like that.
Yeah.
But they used to pay her an halfpenny to be humping
gosh.
bricks and tiles and things around. But all her life she was that sort of person.
I love the humour, because everybody talks about the humour of Harry and Eustace, but actually the women had humour too.
Yes, she was.
Family.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they were strong women.
Yeah.
Very Granny Owen.
Yeah.
She ruled.
Did she?
Yes, she always ruled.
Sounds like my granny.
And I think that's how she brought them up.
Yeah.
I mean, Auntie Lizzie had this mentality that she was going to do whatever she wanted to do, and that was it.
Good for her.
During the Second World War, they used to say she didn't know there was a war on.
There's now one of the family members is in, because this is the armament, it's a shell factory, isn't it?
This is it's local, but I don't know where. It could be the Dare Works.
Because looking at that sliding door, it looks like the Dare Works, doesn't it? I don't know.
It could be the Dare Works, but this is Gran. This is my Gran. This is Chris's youngest sister.
And her name was
Emmy.
Right.
Or Emma. She was always known as Little Emmy because the one before her had died.
Oh gosh, yes.
So she was always known as Little Emmy, and she got away with complete and utter murder.
Did she?
She was very spoiled. But her and Auntie Chrissy were very, very close.
Yeah.
There was about 12 years between them.
Yeah.
But that's Gran.
Yeah.
But
the families were big, weren't they? The fact they had some huge families.
Granny only had 10.
Only 10.
Only 10, but 8 survived.
Yeah. Gosh.
But I mean, most families had 10, say.
Yeah.
My mother's side of the family, my granny, she had 23 or something. That is Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam, yeah.
That's Uncle Sam. Married to Auntie Alice.
Right.
Never had any children. Uncle Sam Mosley. He was a estate carpenter. Him and his father was an estate carpenter. And he was the one that designed and helped build Eustace's house.
He's an important man, isn't he?
He's a very important man.
Right.
He died quite young. He died in the 40s, late 40s.
Yeah.
So he was only probably about 60, whatever.
Yeah. Do you know which estate or whereabouts?
No, I don't. I could probably find out.
But he's the one who, yes, because they built it very quickly, didn't they?
They built it in 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
You've got the photo there, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So,
yeah.
that is what we now see there.
Yeah.
But of course...
Yeah. 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 It's a fine house.
It's people say it looks like a child's drawing, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I think it was a case of, well, what you want it to look like.
Yeah.
And so, they said, oh, well, we want a window in. Yeah. And so it was built, and it's quite a substantial house.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you think they were a working class family, and they had built their own house.
It's a grand house compared to the cottages
It is a very, very grand house, but it's all built out of recycled bricks and wood and tiles. The windows, I believe, came down the river from somewhere like Cressidge or somewhere big house. Yeah. The porch, exactly the same.
The porch is lovely, isn't it? And it's got that Victory knocker.
Yes, that was the final touch to it. I mean, because there's a story about the house. When Harry returned from Wrexham, they returned in about 23. Alice was born in Wrexham. The daughter was born in Wrexham in 22, and they either returned 23, perhaps 24. Tommy died. Tommy, that was Harry's father, died in 1924, and they lived in what was the Cooper's Arms, which we've seen a photograph of at the end there.
Yeah.
And that's where they lived.
Yeah.
Row of cottages is behind.
And it's the white one, isn't it?
And it was a great big rambling place. It was a coaching inn, apparently.
Was it?
Yes.
Was it?
I don't know where they kept the coaches. Perhaps they kept it further up up by the bridge. Yeah. But it was a coaching inn. As I say, it was owned by John Owen. Yeah. And it was still in the Owen family when Tommy was alive, and then they lived there. And then 1933-ish, the act was passed that houses that were rented, that didn't have running water, didn't have a back door, were to be condemned. And they condemned it, and the row of cottages behind it. As I say, there was a little square behind what was called Garage Square. And Harry said they built Wrekin View to house the families. And the council were very careful, because much Wenlock Council. And they did actually think it out. And they decided that they would put Gran, who lived at Churchill. Famously, my great-granny Owen died in 1936. She said she wasn't going to move, and she would rather die first, and she died.
She did it.
Gran stayed on for 2 years and eventually had to get out. But Harry said no, he wasn't going. That was all there was to it. And I think he famously said, when 7 runs past Wrekin View, I'll move.
Yeah, the river was his life, wasn't it?
It was part of his life. And apparently he barricaded himself in with a shotgun, because he always had a shotgun. Barricaded himself in and said he wasn't moving.
Yeah.
And apparently the council compromised and said, well, if you can build your own house there,
and
you can stay.
You can stay.
Well, I think they miscalculated.
Yeah.
Because what they didn't know that A, Harry's brother-in-law was a builder, and B, that the place they lived in and the cottages was still owned by the Owen family, which of course was Auntie Chris's family. So they contacted Mrs. Owen, and she lived at Everell Grove along Bath Terrace, in the big house, very big imposing house. And I think she was a widow by then, and she let them have it for a very small amount. What the amount was, we don't know. But so they set about demolish. They moved into one of the cottages at the back. because by that time the tenants had moved out. They'd gone up to Wrekin View, because Wrekin View they started to build Wrekin View in about 1936.
Yeah.
So they'd gone. So they moved into one of the cottages at the back, and they demolished the Coopers, brick by brick, tile by tile, and they used the timbers, the tiles, absolutely everything. I don't think there was really anything new that went into it, but it was built as they wanted it. It was far too big for them, because the two sitting rooms at the front were never used.
Do you know what my family were like? You had a best room at the front, and you didn't go in there, did you?
They were never used. I mean, it had this big kitchen at the back, which they used to sit in, with a great big table.
Yeah, lovely.
And, you know, paper over one end of it, and, you know, a tablecloth and whatever, and the range, and then of course the scullery, and there was a bath in the scullery, but it was always full of newspapers. It was never used. It was never ever used.
Nobody ever used it. Do you know, it's interesting you say with them reusing the materials, because the house looks older than 1930s, because it's got all the reused brick and the reused tile and the wood.
But it wasn't built in the modern style.
No. And again, it's traditional style.
You know, it had to be as they wanted it.
That's lovely.
They could have, you know, built something really up to date, but they didn't. It didn't even have an inside toilet.
No.
It actually, the toilet was up the entry. Well, there was a glass canopy over it, and then it was right up the very end. But it was, you know, it was sort of indoors.
And it was above the flood level,
and it was way above the flood level.
Because you can see low down on the.
It used to come up, I think, to the little gate. But
You've got some postcards at the top there that show Granny collecting water, and also the pub that the family owned as well.
I've actually got somewhere. I've got a better photograph of the railway tavern. Why it was called the Railway Tavern, I don't know, because it was nowhere near the Railway Tavern. So the Railway Tavern is just there. I think Stokes, by the time this photograph was taken, Stokes's ran it. But it was run by George Owen, which was Grandad Owen's father, and his second wife, who was in fact the widow of Aaron Gottheimer, who was one of the local photographers. And in fact, he's buried in St. Luke's Church.
Oh, really?
They were, him and his brother, Aaron and his brother, I think it might be Jacob, were jobbing photographers. They were Prussian Jews. They were heaved out with pogroms. And they came as jobbing photographers. And I think Jacob had the pub on Waterloo Street on stage.
Oh,
I can't think the one they knocked down.
Not the Birding House.
No, the one actually up the top.
Not the one. Oh gosh.
What was it called?
Oh gosh, not the Lake's Head.
No, that's further down.
That's further down. This side.
Where Bedders is.
Oh, we'll find that out. We'll check that out. We'll find
and so he had that. But George Owen married his widow for a second.
And you think that there are family members in there?
So this one actually says on the back.
Oh yes.
Dear sister, from Harry to Hannah.
Yeah. Gosh.
Well, after George Owen died, and after he famously had a fallout with the vicar at St. Luke's Church that ended in a court case and him doing 4 weeks in jail.
Your family's got quite a story.
The Reverend Wintour.
All right.
I'm not sure whether he could have been related to Anna Wintour, the fashion thingy.
Could be.
Anyway, but George died, and Hannah, his daughter, took it over for a little while, and then she went back into service again. I don't know why. So he's actually sent it to Hannah, and that is Grandad Owen actually standing on the bottom of Church Hill.
Yeah, goodness me.
And this one, I don't know when it was taken, but we're absolutely certain that the lady collecting water from the tap is Granny Owen, because of course they live just here. They live next to Bedders'.
Gosh, yeah.
Up on the yard.
And no running water in the house. But
there was absolutely no running water.
Yeah.
I mean, all the water was brought in from the tap.
Yeah.
And of course, the gardens were at the back of the house, so you had to go up the the front of the house and up the steps up Slippy, what they call Slippy Alley.
Slippy
and
Alley, yeah. Amazing.